Now then everybody, in this week's video I want to share with you my 5 top tips for video editing. Before I do get into this video though, what I'd like to do is ask you watching at home, if you've not already done so, to hit that subscribe button below to subscribe to my channel, and also give this video a quick thumbs up like if you enjoy the content. Okay, so over the past 20 weeks of editing videos for this YouTube channel, I've been picking up on some of the things I'm doing regularly and also some things which I've had to train myself to do better in order to be more productive when it comes to editing videos with a 1-week turnaround. And I've kind of cultivated this list into just 5 main tips. So let's get started with tip number 1. This role actually exists in the film industry, and it's something a data wrangler would do. And it's something which I recommend doing way before you even start putting your footage into your nonlinear editing program, whether it's Premiere Pro, Final Cut, Resolve, etc. As it will save you lots and lots of time later down the line. So things that I do regularly is I will create my folders and I'll structure my footage from A-roll, B-roll, vox pops, talking heads pieces and things like that. And then ultimately it's time to review the footage and watch it back and then rename it. Now I do lots of things like use abbreviations, acronyms, and I use the underscore quite a lot in naming and titling my footage that I've logged. And this is really beneficial if you're filming in a non-linear or non-sequential way. And what I mean by that is if you're filming here, there and everywhere and you don't have everything in the order that you're going to edit it. If you rename your footage, it takes a little bit of time before the edit, but trust me, it will make your life so much easier when it comes to cutting your footage together. Now, cutting your precious footage might be really difficult at first, but trust me, when it comes to pacing and structuring your edits, knowing when to cut is a vital skill. There'll be many times when I will do talking to the camera pieces like this and think that 20 minutes is an acceptable time frame for you guys to be watching, only to realize when it comes to the edit, I'm slowly dropping to sleep. Normally at this point, that's when I would start to chop and cut things out of my talking heads piece in order to make, hopefully, the viewer more engaged. But ultimately, although it feels counterproductive to cut your work, especially after you've spent so much time to edit it, remember you've got to think of your audience and make sure that the pace of your edit is as tuned as it can be. Keyboard shortcuts for your nonlinear editing programs are more than likely going to be contained within the operating manuals of those softwares, or I'm sure there'll be plenty of YouTube videos where people can cover the keyboard shortcuts. Things like the spacebar to play, definitely in Premiere Pro and Davinci Resolve, and more than likely Final Cut Pro as well. And also, especially with Premiere Pro, knowing the difference between the C on the keyboard and the V, which is the razor tool and the selection tool, really allows me to quickly start chopping my footage in the timeline, but also then jumping back to the selection tool, which allows me to get back to editing without being destructive and cutting more scenes. So keyboard shortcuts can be massively helpful in your performance and really do make editing a lot more fun because you're not having to dig deep into your menu systems of these editing programs to find things that you use regularly. So once you've got all of your footage into your rough cut, something that I do regularly is then play back the footage and make sure that all of the shots actually match each other. Now sometimes colour matching, if you filmed everything relatively quickly next to each other, isn't a massive problem, but if you're like me and you spend quite a lot of time at locations during different times of the day, sometimes you can be filming in the morning, which has a more blue tone to it, and then sometimes you'll have some shots that you filmed in the afternoon which are going to have more orange tones to them. Now you should be white balancing in order to make sure that these aren't massively counterbalanced when you do get to the edit, but every so often you will come across a few clips where the white balance is off, and therefore making sure that you do a quick colour balance, which is the primary as it could be referred to through colour correction, will really make sure that your timeline before you do any stylized colour grading afterwards is looking the best it can look. Knowing where you're going to be sending this final video will really help when choosing the correct output settings to ensure that you're getting the best quality of your footage. Now, to plug my last week's video, which should be showing up there right now on screen, I was working with 5.1K video footage and also 4K video footage, but I was outputting to a 4K DCI output, which meant that I was working with two separate types of resolution and then outputting to another resolution altogether. So it was really important I knew what the output settings were in order for that footage to be consistent. So you may always go for one preset, try to look at the output that you're doing and make sure that that preset is correct, or start to learn ways that you can tweak those and make them into your own custom output settings. This can also be the case if you've edited in a 4K timeline but only really want a 1080p final resolution output, or you filmed in 6K but only want 4K, etc, etc. But knowing what kind of file types are out there and which codecs can give you the best quality possible will again make your final outputs the best quality they can be. Okay, so those have been my 5 top tips for video editing. As always, these are just my personal preference, my personal 5 top tips. When it comes to video editing, there really are lots of things that you can be learning and lots of ways that you can be training yourself on to get better and more advanced with those tools. So my advice to finish all this off is to keep watching, keep learning, and keep practicing, without sounding too cliched that practice makes perfect. I know I'm certainly still learning every time I open my programs up, and I've been editing now for close to 11 years, and I don't intend to stop learning anytime soon. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, folks. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video if you enjoyed the content, and let me know in the comment section if you liked this kind of video and would like to see some future tips that I could give you in the future. Thank you very much.